Howdy, Jacob here. Today I'm going to be doing a video a bit different than what I usually do. Obviously, a lot of my videos are going to be on calculating the present value of earnings and free cash flow on individual companies. Today I want to change it up a little bit. So I have three different lines right here in Excel in columns three or rows three, four, and five. In the first row, I am assuming that the situation that's occurring is buying and selling stocks or ETFs or mutual funds, anything that would require uh, taxes. And so I want to show you how holding a company or an ETF for the long term is the smart thing to do rather than just buying in and out of stocks. Okay. So in the very first example, I have you buy a stock and you sell it before the year end and then keep doing that. And in this case, it becomes your income tax. And so if you are hitting over $95,000, you're in the 24, you will hit the 24% tax bracket. And that's going to be that incremental amount that, let's say you made $5,000 on the stock, you made $100,000 or $150,000 that year, you're in that 24% tax bracket. Obviously, of that 150,000, it's going to average out to about 19%. Um, yeah, I actually have that math right here. 19.6% is going to be your average tax bracket, but you will get taxed at the 24% bracket for that $5,000 in gains on stocks that you have. And so this is basically saying that um, the amount that you gain, the 9% return you get, is going to be taxed at 24%. And that's going to be your total at that point in time. The next one is going to be you waited 1 year and now you're taxed at capital gains. And so, again, I'm assuming $150,000. You're in the 15% capital gains bracket. And with that said, you will get taxed on that incremental 9% you make on 100 grand at 15%. And then at the bottom, I basically am saying I'm not selling it until these highlighted places. And then I'm comparing how much my excess return is in comparison to both holding it and selling it before year end and getting income tax, or even holding it for 1 year, selling it, buying something else, getting that 9% return. And so at 5 years, you can see there's not a whole lot of difference. So um, the 4.7% here is basically just if I held a company or ETF for 5 years at 9% rate of return, and then at 5 years I sold it on all those gains, I was taxed at 9%, which you can see here. And I'm saying that the 4.7% is the amount greater that it would be to just hold a company for 5 years rather than selling it right before year end and still getting that 9% rate of return. The 0.8% is if you just sold after each year on the incremental 15%, you get taxed rather than really leveraging your return by not selling. And then this 5.5% is to show you how advantageous it is to use tax advantage accounts such as a Roth IRA, or any of your IRAs can grow tax free before you remove them. And so your IRAs, your 401ks, your HSA accounts, these are going to be growing tax free. So you can really be buying in and out of stocks. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're getting that 9%, you're not taxed on the actual accumulation until you pull out of a traditional IRA, 401k, or in a Roth situation. It's entirely tax free after 59 and a half. And then same with HSA funding. If you remove it for non health accounts, health related expenses or reimbursements, then it's essentially traditional and they'll just tax you on what you take out. But if it's for medical costs, it's entirely tax free like a Roth and has the additional benefit of not being taxed at the beginning. But anyways, I might do a video on that later. But For now, I just want to go over 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And at 10 years, you can see it's quite a bit more. So if I just held a company for 10 years, sold it at 10 years after a 9% return versus holding it and then right before year end getting income taxed on it, 11.6%. And then it's still only 3.5% greater to hold it for 10 years rather than selling in and out after a year on that capital gains tax. And then it's 9.5% greater to not be taxed at all and hold it in a tax-free account. At 20 years, you can see it's 31%, 12.5%, 14.1%. At 30 years, it gets a lot greater because, again, you're growing something exponentially. And so the longer it is, the greater the excess return will be. And so we have at 30 years, 57% difference in the amount of money you would have, 25% difference in the amount of money you would have, even getting capital gains tax. If you would have just held it, and got that leverage return from not paying taxes until you sold, you would have 25% more money. 40, 90, 40, and 17. And then at 50 years, 131%. You'd have well over double the amount of money from not going in and out of stocks to get that 9% return. And then at 60 years, I think that was the last one I did, holding a company for 60 years, selling it, you would have 182% more money than if you sold right before a year with the exact same return. Everything again is at the 9% rate of return. And so what's another thing I want to do here? I want to show why it is so tough to beat the market. Okay. So the average person would just, in a brokerage account, let's say, buy an S&P 500. Let's say, again, I'm just saying 9% rate of return. You make that for 60 years, you would get this much. And then when you got out for taxes, you would get 15 million essentially. Okay. So what is the rate of return that I would need to make if I were still getting capital gains tax? So like I was selling in and out of stocks, but getting advantageous on the tax bracket, but I wasn't holding them. So I'm holding companies that are hopefully going to make me 14% rate of return. And at 14%, I should more than likely beat the 9% that we're saying the market gets, which you definitely will. But you will see how much greater of a percent you need. So if I wanted to set here, we just do a simple goal seek. I want to set that value to the same rate of return, just holding for 60 years and then selling. And I want to change the rate of return with the capital gains. I can see that I need to beat the market by 14% to get this exact same return if I would have just held S&P for 60 years. And so this value is going to differ if I want, after 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You can all do the math with it. But this is to say that it's very hard to beat the market because even if you take advantage of capital gains tax, but you still get in and out of stocks relatively short term, a little over a year, maybe under 5 years, the leverage you would gain by just sticking to the same ETF and holding that for such a long period of time, you're leveraging your turn increases due to the non-simple rate and an exponential rate of return you get for holding a company. So I hope this was an informative video. I know it was a bit different, and you'd think it'd be contradictory to what I'm doing right now, but I do think it is possible to beat the market by multiple percentage points. So to get 9% on that, let's say 9% is average, I think it's reasonable to get 11, 12, 13, 15% even. You just have to be very particular with what you buy and be as confident as possible that it will beat the market rate, or else just stick with what you know in the SPY and S&P 500. So I hope everyone has a good rest of their day. Thank you.